Okay. All right. So we are into first lecture, which is Introduction to Operating Systems. And as an exercise, please go through volume 1 of this book by Anderson and Dahlin. This excellent book being used in most of the universities abroad, including Berkeley. And it has 3 volumes. So volume 1, read these sections for this class. Section 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. In fact, you can read the whole chapter. It's very simple. You don't need too much of concentration even in reading this. It's a very simple text. Okay, so we'll study what OS is, and we'll see the 3 roles of OS, which is one is illusionist, second is referee, and the glue. So these are 3 main roles. Okay, can you please mute yourself, all of you? I'm requesting. And if you have question, please feel free to unmute and ask question. All right. Okay. I think Nishant is, I will mute him. All right. Okay, folks. So let's start. So let's look at what the OS is. What do you think is OS? I mean, can anybody answer this? You have used OS all throughout, right? Without that, you can't use computer, in fact. We are not using embedded system. And embedded system also has small OS. So most of us have used Windows and also Linux, right? Some of you who have Mac OS probably would have used that too, right? I mean, MacBook in a MacBook is OS, which is a Mac OS. Nothing but a Linux, advanced form of Linux. Okay, so can anybody define what OS is?
Sir, can I answer it?
Yeah, of course, yes.
Yeah, sir, OS is an like we can say that it is an interface that provides us to control the functioning of processes.
Okay, very good, excellent. Functioning of basically it manages processes, creation from basically complete management. You are absolutely right. What else?
So apart from process,
it does a lot of things, right? And its role is also changing. Process, of course, anything that is running is a process, right?
Resource management. It also do
it does resource. Very good, excellent.
It provides security.
It provides security. Excellent, very good. Security between what?
From yesterday, you have mentioned that it provides security from viruses or
software. Yeah, so basically it provides security to the user. Yeah, what else?
In Windows, they provide the antivirus also.
Okay, right. It gives virus protection. Okay, and also it protects one process from other process. It protects, in fact, itself, kernel or OS protect itself from user processes and one user process from other user processes. Fine. All right, good, very good. So let's look at it, right? So look at this diagram. What do you see here? It's a beautiful diagram, right? Okay, so this is a technology that you have studied in last year in your networking course, and this is the most popular, I would think, and most important communication technology that has happened in last 1 century. Okay, and this is nothing but internet. Okay, can anybody tell me why internet has become so popular? Anyone?
Sir, it has a high diversity and it can be increased its size, means unlimited.
Yeah, it can both are
long
correct.
Distance communication.
Long distance communication is also right, but it has been happening, earlier also there was satellite communication, right, which covers Mhm.
It gives us easy access to information that we want to check or
Ye-
something.
Yeah, it gives access to information sources, because information sources like backend, say web server or whatever, also connected to internet. That's the reason it provides. But what is the beauty about it? Why
So
it has?
internet is
Yeah.
it's yeah. So
Mhm.
internet is itself a resource.
Is
It
what?
provide uh, itself a resource.
Is a
Uh,
resource. Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
but internet is, by the way, not a resource. Internet is a pipe. Okay.
We
So
can
simple answer for that is, let me just, of course there is OS behind it, but OS is not the primary reason why it has become popular. So let me just, although it's not related to the topic that we will come up to, but the, if you look at the PSTN phones, I'm sure you would have used it possibly sometime or other, maybe when you were small kid, then PSTN phones were popular. It's still some homes have phones. I have phone at home. Okay, PSTN phone. So what is this phone designed for? It's designed to carry only voice, right? So but it's a beautiful system in the sense that you can do voice communication. Voice quality is quite good because the 4 kilohertz is all available for one voice channel. But it is absolutely secure. We wouldn't have heard of telephone calls being recorded by somebody else or hacked or whatever, right? So it's a system that's designed only for voice communication. It's very rigid, so it cannot carry anything else. Okay, it's designed only around voice. Let's look at any other communication technology of last century, say, or that has been there in existence for last 100 years. Say, for example, radio transmission that has been happening, like your AM radio or FM radio, right? These are all broadcast mechanisms, right? And they have been popular, but it's only one way. It's a broadcast and very limited use. Okay, and can we use this for something else? Can radio communication be used for TV communication? Answer is no. Okay, AM, FM have been designed only for a specific purpose. Similarly, satellite communication has been designed for a specific purpose. And then you go to different technologies like local area network. Before Ethernet was token ring, token bus, and then SONET. In fact, these are all designed for just one kind of communication, that too in limited domain or limited area. Okay, and when the internet came, it says that it will not have any intelligence by itself, right? It just provides pipe. Okay, and this pipe should work at any bandwidth, right? Maybe when I started using internet first time, I had less than 64 kbps speed and used to pay something a few thousand rupees for that. So basically it can work with few kilobits up to gigabit per second or hundreds of gigabit per second. That's the beauty, right? So internet provides end-to-end pipe. It's like water pipe, right? Whatever is a hose pipe or water pipe, and whatever you put at one end comes at the other end. Okay, that's one beauty of internet, is that it does not have intelligence, so it doesn't provide any security of any kind, and at the end, whatever you're sending or receiving, so both end have applications that understand what kind of bits they are sending in what pattern, and other side can decode it, right? Say, for example, we are speaking right now, I'm speaking, so my voice, the protocol or the application converts my voice into bits in certain way. Okay, and those bits are received at your end and replayed. Okay, so intelligence is at the end. That's the beauty, that internet provides only pipe. And second, internet, you would have noticed that internet is only at layer 3. Okay, you can say, and then on top, in order to provide reliability and streaming communication, then you use TCP and UDP and so on. But essentially is IP, right? Layer 3. So layer 2 is not defined. It works on layer 2. Okay, so it's a interconnect technologies. It means that all the older technologies can be used to carry traffic in part of internet. So internet works on top of layer 2. Okay, so that's the beauty, that's interconnect technology. So, but it's end-to-end technology, right? You would have studied this end-to-end concept in networking. So it's end-to-end technology, and because it's end-to-end technology, it's like water pipe. There is no limitation on number of applications you have. Okay, you can have millions of applications as long as one application can understand similar application at the other end. So protocols or the application logic has to be the same. All right. So that is the beauty of internet. And then internet uses, I mean, if you look the interface of your laptop to internet, okay, and the application we are using, like we are using Zoom, then them internally would be using some voice or IP application like protocol like SIP or Megaco or something. And then finally the packets are given to OS, and there are device drivers in Ethernet. Okay, and from Ethernet the packets are going to the router, and from there going away, right? So of course OS will come in between. Okay, so the internet is something that has grown very rapidly. I'm sure you know all these curves, right? And number of users of www or internet is almost like same as number of people in the world, or in fact more if you look at machine-to-machine communication. All right. And then we can see that over last 50-60 years, number of computers per person, earlier it was one computer in almost like 1 million people. Okay, it has come down to every person has multiple computers today. And very soon when machine-to-machine communication starts happening using IoT, then per person will be having more than say 100 internet connections, right? So there's a internet connection, and not only that, but also each person will be having say 100 computers, right? Earlier it was 1 in 1 million. Now it will be kind of, every person will be having more than one computers, right? And we have seen that every decade, right, there is a new class of computer that comes up. Okay, so every 10 years there was one earlier very large system, then mainframe, then mini frame, then workstation, then PCs came, from PCs to laptops to slates or iPad kind, PDA. Then came cell phone. Then from cell phone, technology is moving towards IoT. Okay, of course, all these things also exist, but every new generation of computing device comes every 10 years, right? And something, okay, all right. So now we can see also, there are, if you look at this, the timing, because look at this way, computers are increasing in power and they are becoming faster, but various components of a computer operates at very different speeds. Okay, and somebody has to manage all that. For example, L1 cache. We have studied L1 cache, L2 caches, right? Can anybody tell me that L1 cache access time has to be more than a cycle time or less than a cycle time? The time to access a cache, L1 cache, has to be more than a cycle time or less than a cycle time?
So less than a cycle time.
Less than a cycle, because in one cycle we are doing a lot of things, right? Memory read and write we are doing in one cycle. Instruction read we are doing, so it has to be less than one cycle, right? So, we can see that it's less than a nanosecond. Then, if there is a branch prediction, we have also studied branch predictions, right? And there's a if this program could not predict the branch correctly, then penalty is 5 nanoseconds. Okay, and then if something misses in L1 cache, then we'll have to go to L2 cache, and access time is 7 nanosecond. Okay, and then we'll study very soon some kind of locking mechanism, mutex, when two threads want to synchronize with each other. Then we use a mutex locks, right? So it takes 25 nanosecond. Then if we miss L1 and L2, okay, and then data is to fetch from main memory, it is 100 nanoseconds. Okay, and then of course there are, like, in order to compress 1 kilobyte data, it's 300 nanosecond. Then if you have to send 2 kilobytes of data, 1 Gbps link, then it requires 20,000 nanosecond. To read 1 MB sequential data from memory, it requires 250,000 nanosecond, and so on, right? So we can see that time goes on like this. And of course the communication delay, if you want to send a packet from, say, California to Netherlands, or we can say from say Bangalore to, say, New York, it will take so much of nanosecond, right? And then so it means that within a computer, in general, computers will handle events and components that are either very fast or some are very, very slow, but it has to manage all of these, right? So there is a source of complexities, and then we have to deal with the components that are widely diverse in functionality and timing. Okay, and operating system is the one that manages all this, right? For a user, it presents something which is very fast. Okay, so we don't see what is L1, what is L2, what is whether it has say flash memory, or it has whatever hard disk or something, or tape. Nothing is visible to user. The user just want some abstraction, and OS provides all that, right? So OS is in the heart of all this, because as we discussed earlier, the technology, hardware technology like processors, memory, main memory like SDRAM or DDRAM, or hard disk, or flash drive, SSD drive, or there are a lot of other technologies. They are changing very fast, and we are going from one core to multi-core. Okay, all these things are changing. Networking is changing very fast, right? Bus technologies are changing very fast. Okay, and all these things are happening underneath. Okay, and there is a lot of diversity inside, right? As we have seen, some things are very fast, some things are very slow, and on top we have applications. So applications are also changing. Like we have applications for say, for example, wherein we want to run our software in data center over hundreds of computers, right? So okay, and all these things are interfaced. So this complexity is hidden, and OS provides the interface to applications. So the OS is the one that manages what application wants and uses the resources inside below itself in hardware. Okay, so all right. Okay, so the key building blocks of OS are basically processes, threads, concurrency or concurrency management, scheduling. Okay, we will study all of these concepts little later. Processes, we'll see that with the first thing that happens in a computer when it boots up is to start with the init process, and then processes are forked from that. Okay, and more processes are created, and then within a process we have threads. Okay, and then multiple processes need to synchronize with each other, right? So we have synchronization mechanism, then message passing between processes and threads, and multiple threads and processes should be able to run concurrently. So there is a concurrency management, and then there are resources. For example, like like ALU or processor. Okay, which process is going to use a processor and how much time? What happens if the process blocks the CPU or holds up CPU for longer period of time? Then what is the policy around it? Is somebody controlling it? And how process should be given chance to run? All that comes under scheduling. Okay, and of course we have studied the concept of address space, that each process has its own address space. So each process thinks that it has a full memory available for itself, right? And that address space management, which we call it virtual memory or memory management, is also done by OS. We have studied this, architecture class, but it's part of OS. Architecture simply tells you what are the hardware components, and OS provides all these mechanisms of virtual memory and, in fact, cache management, starting from cache management up to virtual memory management. Then we have seen the protection, isolation, how one process can be protected from other process. Concept of isolation is that one process should not interfere with other. Basically, both points are related. Then sharing of resources between processes, providing security between them, and of course managing communication protocols. So these are the key building blocks of OS. All right. Of course, persistent storage management, transaction management, consistency, resilience, and interfaces for all devices, right? Okay, and it manages all these underneath and provides some abstraction on top to users. Okay, for example, we don't see when we have a file system. Okay, we have a directory, and we may not even know that where the file exists. File may exist in SSD or sometimes in hard disk if we have both, and very often we will not even come to know as part of SSD or hard disk. Of course, we can also, our directory system designed in such a way that tells us, because sometimes we have to transfer files from hard disk to flash drive, so it will tell us, but we can always design, and there are file system which hides all this, where the files are actually, right? Okay, so it provides abstraction of files and how files are actually stored on hard disk or flash or tape drive is all hidden from users. Okay, so OS provides abstraction. We'll now look at these concepts in the following slides. Any question up to this point?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. Okay, so OS provides interface between hardware and applications. So it provides a virtual world to application or processes such that they can use underneath hardware. Okay. And of course, it provides protection, security, and communication among logical entities, which is processes. Okay, so other view is this one. So we know, we have studied this in our architecture course. We have a processor which can be pipelined, and nowadays most of these processor pipeline, and then of course we have virtual memory, and for that we need page tables, and then we have TLBs also, right? Anybody will tell me what is TLB? Can you remember what is TLB?
It's a buffer. Translation loop ahead buffer.
Translation loop, basically part of this mapping, we keep it in cache. That we call it buffer. Actually, is a high speed memory cache, right? Only few, such that access time is less, and most of the time we are inside a page or few pages, so access time is very fast, right? And then of course we have memory. When we use word memory, remember we use main memory. Okay, and then we have storage, which is nothing but hard disk or SSD. When you use word storage, it's essentially means secondary memory, which is hard disk or SSD. And now we have hardware devices, like we have a network card or maybe a display or keyboard or so on, right? So this is for IO. Primarily, these are all IO devices. Okay, so this is our hardware. Okay, and then we have also studied the concept of instruction set architecture, and each processor has well-defined instruction set architecture. So all the applications or system program or or whatever program one designs or writes using this instruction set. Okay, and then underneath hardware is all hidden, right? And it can change as technology changes without impacting the world on the top. Okay, and we know that what ISA consists of, right? If somebody has to write assembly language program, whatever is needed to write that is part of ISA. For example, number of register or number of kind of instructions and so on. Okay, all right. So now all that we have covered in computer architecture course. Okay, now all these are available, but OS provides an abstraction on top. Like if you have hard disk, what size hard disk is, how many sector it has, it's not really concerned. Users are not concerned about details of hard disk. What is RPM of the hard disk, how many sector disk is there, a small disk, large disk or whatever. Abstraction provided to higher end by OS is files. Okay, so OS provides these abstractions. It hides all the complexity of hardware and provides very simple interfaces on top, such that through these interfaces these hardware can be used, right? So this we know by now that OS does the following. For example, memory management, IO management, CPU scheduling, communication support, multitasking and multiprogramming. We'll learn about this. Multiprogramming is when multiple programs or processes are resident in main memory and they are using one CPU one after other or one by one. Okay, that's called multiprogramming. File system is also part of. File systems are managed or virtual concept of file is presented to user by OS, because otherwise there's nothing like file system. On disk you have just bits and bytes. Okay, and they are stored in certain sectors. That's it. But what a file is actually this concept or abstraction, which a file has a name. For example, it has certain number of bytes, and then bytes are arranged in certain way, whether it's a text file or is a PNG file or is some other kind of file or exe file. Once that's defined, that's the exe file, then rest of the data has to be interpreted accordingly. So all these format and abstractions are presented by OS to users. Okay, while hardware provides, or hard disk just provides a simple platter on which zeros and ones can be stored. So conversion of zeros and ones to corresponding a file is provided by OS. Of course, multimedia support and UI, user interfaces. Okay, so basically OS is something that manages the whole system. There's no unique kind of one definition for it. Okay, and sometimes we use called kernel. Kernel and OS sometimes used interchangeably. Some authors say that this is hardly no difference. Earlier there was no difference between kernel and OS because everything used to run in protected mode. Now the concepts of OS is changing, and we say that something that is very essential for management and something that's minimal and that has to be protected from user processes is kernel. So OS, we can think in monolithic system, we can say OS is same as kernel, because this runs in the protected mode, and on top of this user, then we can say OS is kernel. Or if part of OS, if we have kernel, we call it kernel in new OS technologies, then this kernel always runs in protected mode or OS mode, we can say. And while in user mode, there can be part of OS that can run in as a user process. Okay, so kernel is something that will always run in protected mode. Remember that. Okay, all right.